Hi everyone, it's Dave and I hope you're well. And following on from yesterday's video where I announced the release and publication, finally, of my book, The Imperfect Individual, I wanted to do a video today, a bit more of a considered video, bit broader really, to try to tell you about my inspiration and motivation for writing the book, what it is that I'm trying to achieve with the book, and most importantly, I want to say thanks as well. So before I get to all that, if you are interested in the book, if you relate in any way to what I talk about in my videos, if you're a general supporter of what it is I'm doing and my content, you can now buy a copy of the book. If you just click the link in the description there, that will take you to the Author House website where you can order as many copies as you like. The Author House is the publisher that I've been working with. So as I say, if you're interested, then the link's in the description, and obviously I would be honoured should you choose to purchase a copy or copies of my book, and I would really appreciate it if you could spread the word as well, because I'm going to come to this for all my faults. I think I've got something to say that can help at least some people in the book. So now that that's done, we'll get to the main body of content of the video and talk more broadly about the book. Just briefly, there's going to be a lot more videos from me where, unfortunately, where I'm not outside as much. I've got an issue with my knee. I've had a scan on it and it's probably needing surgery. I've had surgery on it before, so that's not ideal. But I can't walk very far at the moment, so just in case you were wondering why many more of my videos will probably be indoors, that's the reason why. Right, okay, so I'll start with how do I begin to say thanks? And who do I want to say thanks to? So first of all, I want to say a heartfelt thanks to everybody in my life, personal life, friends and family who have been patient with me, who have seen the many challenges that I've undergone over the last few years and seen some of the suffering that's taken place, some of the heartache and some of the destructive behaviour, and have stayed loyal, haven't given up on me, and have supported me throughout what has undoubtedly been and continues to be, for a number of reasons, very, very difficult, traumatic times. I can't really begin to express my gratitude. Characters that have loyalty and duty and forgiveness as their central tenets are precious in this world. So I want to say thanks to family and friends. I also want to say thanks to anybody who's personally reached out to me since I started my YouTube video, which was over 2 years ago now. We don't have a massive channel here. It's only very small in the grand scheme of things, but I think it's powerful, and I've learned so much from my subscribers. I have had some people reaching out to me on a personal level. I've developed friendships, meaningful connections. I've learned so much. And I've learned at least as much as I hope that I have helped others. So whether you have reached out personally to me, whether you have commented on my videos, shared my videos, just supported me, for those that have contributed to the crowdfunding campaign for the book, however it is that you've personally supported me and my channel, and the very fact that you believe in what it is that I am doing, I just want to say thank you so much for your support and your help, and I am so grateful. So, as I say, the YouTube channel I started just over 2 years ago. I think it was July 2020. I remember saying at the time that I would never have forgiven myself if I wouldn't have put myself out there and said what needed to be said. And that's true. I wouldn't ever have forgiven myself. Similarly, that also applies to the book. The book, which is also called The Imperfect Individual. And, you know, the strapline is why our world is in turmoil and how you can save it. Because if there's one thing that I could probably confidently say about myself, without any awkwardness, that I am good at, I would confidently say that I can write and I can communicate a message. And I've known that for a long, long time. And I've always felt, you know, somewhere deep in my being, my essence, for a number of years now, for, I don't know, maybe since my late teens, early 20s, I've always felt that I would have to write a book. Now, you've heard that, you know, that saying, everybody's got a book in them. But I don't know whether that's true or not. But for me, I think I knew from a relatively early age that, you know, if I went to my death without having written a book, I would have let myself down in the worst possible way. I've just always known there's a book in there, a book, and I think I've always known it was going to be a book, somehow a comment on society, a state of the nation, a analysis of the zeitgeist, whatever you want to call it, because that's essentially what the book is. But also that I don't know whether you can write a book like that in your early 20s. I don't know. I think I always felt that the time had to be right. Maybe I had to have a bit more life experience. So I started writing the book in my late 30s. Well, how old was I? 37, 38. By which point I think I'd gained a lot of life experience. Done some good things, done a lot of stupid things, been to a lot of places, met a lot of people, had a lot of jobs, a few different business ventures, read a few books, had a few girlfriends. I'd had quite a quite a few escapades, and crucially, had been paying attention to the shape of society, I think. And I think that allied to some historical interests that I have, and some developing interests around psychology and human nature, the dynamics of power, and analysis of self. I think all these concepts and all these interests and all these different interesting angles kind of converged at the right time. At the same time that the world really did truly descend into utter chaos and carnage. So I'll tell you when I started writing the book. It was the 25th of April, 2019. The previous day, I left my job in a university that I've been at for 10 years. I've become very disenchanted with it, to extreme levels. I felt suffocated. I felt I was in the wrong environment. I felt claustrophobic. I just walked out and I never went back. Anyway, the next day, I got up at 6 o'clock in the morning, I remember, which is highly unusual for me. Because I'm a bit of I can be a bit of a lazy bastard, to be honest with you. Went for a walk down the canal. I remember it was a cool, bright spring day, and I came back and I just started writing. And I remember at the time I called the book. I later learned don't give your book a title until you finish it. But anyway, I called the book at that point "Meaning is All." Meaning is all, because I knew that I wanted to write about the concept of meaning and purpose, and lost meaning and purpose in Western society. And I think I wrote a couple of thousand words in about an hour. So I think the book is about 40 or 42,000 words, and the first 2,000 words-ish were written, as I say, in the first hour 3 years ago. And that was how it started. And all I knew at that point was that I had a strong message to convey. I had a pretty clear idea of what I was going to say. I was going to talk a lot about the fall of Western civilization. I was going to talk a lot about the descent into immorality and decadence and complacency. I was going to talk a lot about the disgraceful actions of many in my own country with regard to sabotaging the most important democratic vote in generations, i.e. Brexit. I had a number of... I was going to talk about multi-billion pound corporations and their fascism and cartelism and monopolies on their sectors. I was going to talk about the poisonous influence of the media, and I was going to talk about how statism had started to become a religion. I just felt that I really did feel, and I could see and hear all around me how society was falling. And possibly just needed a trigger to descend into something absolutely horrific. And of course that happened with the onset of the first lockdown in response to you know what. Now actually, I got lured into that fear. I've talked about this a little bit. Against my better judgment and better instincts, I had about 2 weeks where I became hypnotized myself. I quickly extricated myself from that. I've done lots of videos around that topic. I know that many of us, some didn't fall for it at all. Many of us did for a short period of time. For me, as I say, initially very skeptical, dubious, and then probably because of the amount of social proof around me, everybody was scared. Everybody was fearful. I was lulled into that psychosis temporarily as well, and then bang, snapped out of it because it was so obvious that we were being lied to, wasn't it? So I then thought a lot of what I'd written about the division and polarization and the stupidity and all the rest of the decadence and the selfishness, I thought a lot of it was redundant now, because I then spent a short amount of time thinking, all right, people are going to wake up now and this is going to be a unifying force, and the world is going to, is the world that we know, the world of immorality and decadence and ignorance and lack of conversation and nastiness, spitefulness and all the rest of it, that's over now. And this is going to unite people, and we're going to gain a new sense of perspective, and we're going to evolve into this brighter new age. I spent a few weeks thinking that, and then it dawned on me that no, what I'd written about before all that started had become even more relevant, because no, actually the insanity was just becoming deeper, the psychosis was becoming deeper. And people were not only behaving unusually, they were turning into automatons, robots, zombies, incapable of thinking and incapable of, even realizing that such a thing as a moral compass existed. So that gave me a lot more impetus, obviously a lot more material, a lot more inspiration. I had all around me, I had first-hand proof that society had fallen. So in that instance, it was quite easy to write about. I just literally had to write what I was seeing. And that's what I've tried to do with this book. With my book, I've tried to provide clarity rather than depth. Now, some people might read it and think, well, this is quite deep. I've tried to really crystallize in the purest possible and simplest possible way why what has happened. Why it couldn't just have happened without a precedent and without groundwork and without decades of deterioration and denigration first. So I've tried to provide real clarity on that. So back to the book. So I carried on writing intermittently. Had massive doubts whether I would ever bring it to fruition. Had imposter syndrome, it's called, where I questioned, well, why is it you writing this book, Dave? You know, this is quite a big thing. Should it really be you? You know, little old Dave, why are you? Are you getting ideas? Are you getting ideas above your station here? Imposter syndrome. I had that quite a lot. I had days where I just didn't want to do it. It was too much. I was going through a terrible time throughout the lockdowns and feeling isolated and feeling like I was surrounded by people who had just changed beyond all recognition. Most of them now have finally, thank God, returned to their good old selves. But I was drinking a lot, drinking too much, as I say, feeling isolated, feeling angry. And that's carried on for then I started my YouTube channel in the midst of all that and started telling you guys about the book. Then I was feeling pressure. Then I had to find a publisher. Then they had to accept it. And then I had to go through the whole publishing process. So start that before I'd even finished the book. And then the pressure intensified even more. Things were unstable on the job front. In the middle of it all, I think I had to get an operation, which put me out for a long time. And looking back, a lot of the time I was acting, and I'm going to talk more about this tomorrow, about the themes in which I write about in the book. How I've actually got quite a lot of clarity quite recently, really, on how I am indeed myself a product of a fallen civilization, a society, that is imploding. I myself, in a number of ways, am a product of that. Now, I do talk about that in the book as well, because I try to encourage the reader, and I ask myself to realize that we're all part of the problem and we can all choose to be part of the solution. But actually, and tomorrow's video will probably be quite interesting when I've been thinking last few days, in what way, what are the traits of a civilization in demise, and which of those traits am I also displaying in my character, personality and behaviour? So I'm going to talk about that tomorrow, because that's very interesting, and that brings in concepts such as contradictions and hypocrisy and things like that. But I talk about that in the book in a chapter called the Fool is the Precursor to the Saviour, which is where I try to encourage the reader to embrace their flaws, to embrace their hypocrisies and their contradictions, because that is that is part of what needs to happen in order for us to arrive to wherever it is we need to go. I think it was Nietzsche said something along the lines of, he said something like, just because I am shackled in chains doesn't mean I can't provide you with the key to the lock to unshackle you from your chains. So I hope you understand what it is I'm saying there. And you do, when you're writing a book, particularly when you're commenting on society, you do feel a lot of the time you feel awkward, you feel hypocritical, you feel sometimes arrogant, as you realise that, particularly when you look on some of your own kind of behaviour, maybe you realise how hypocritical your writing potentially is in many ways. But you can't let that stop you, because what it is that you're saying in providing clarity, so long as it's underpinned by a degree of honesty, you have to say what needs to be said. Because that driving force, that quest to offer something to the world can't be sabotaged by those negative thinking patterns. So carried on writing, and then fast forward to the 15th of October 2021. I remember at that point in my life feeling like I was finally getting somewhere. Things were starting to make sense. People were starting to wake up. My life seemed to be moving in a more positive direction. Things seemed to be on the up. They weren't perfect, far from it. But I don't think I'd ever felt more confident. And on that day, I submitted my final manuscript to Author House. The following Monday, my dad died. And everything came crashing down. Everything. Like, the world that I thought I was beginning to understand became a new, dangerous, terrifying new reality for me, and I didn't know how to cope. Well, I don't know. I'm here, aren't I? I've brought the book to fruition, but in many ways I didn't. In many ways, well, I've struggled, yes. And why wouldn't I? Less than a year still since he passed. I realised at that point that I had to put the book on hold. I couldn't publish it without some kind of tribute to my dad, but I couldn't write it. I couldn't write it for a number of weeks after, and then I finally did write it. So his life and death, and how I've tried to use him as an inspiration. That now acts as the preface in the book. So that's the first thing that you'll read if you do buy a copy. And in a strange way, it's kind of like death, and how I've tried to celebrate his life in the book underpins the two biggest themes in the book, which are life and death, and the West's strange and fearful and fretful attitude towards both life and death. And I would suggest, and I argue in some way, that's something to do with an overtaking of pessimism and atheism in society at the expense of God. So they're more themes that I explore in the book. Anyway, then came the problems and the issues with the publication process. There were a number of delays. I had a number of some concerns. I wanted the book to be as perfect as it could possibly be, so I wasn't going to compromise on anything. So there were a number of delays, a number of hitches, a number of obstacles. And then I wanted to write a little bit more content as well. So it was actually 11 months after the first original scheduled submission of the manuscript that the book's finally being published. So that's the story of the book, and what it is I'm trying to achieve and why I wrote it. I firmly believe that probably the deepest responsibility of all that we have, all of us that we have, and the greatest burden that we will ever bear if we don't realise that responsibility, is to offer our gift to the world. And this is my way of offering my gift to the world. I understand that many people will not relate to it. They'll disagree. They'll be nasty. I don't care. I really don't care, because what I've said is what I think and what I feel, and is based on it's based on thought, logic, reason, but also it's based on intuition. It's based on feeling. It's based on spirit. It's me, you know, and I've written it because I had to. You know, I didn't write it for myself, and I didn't particularly enjoy writing it. I don't even know how I'm feeling now it's being released, to be honest with you. A mixture of emotions. It just needed to be done. The book needed to be written. Somebody needed to write this book, and that person had to be me. So so there we go. Now, I'll do a video tomorrow, as I say, because I've not done a video for a while, actually, kind of like a humbling re-examination of myself, talking about maybe where I've been hypocritical, where some of the themes I've talked about in the book that have also driven me to large degrees. For example, lack of responsibility and decadence, they're two massive ones, and selfishness as well. 3. So I will talk in more detail about that tomorrow, but today was just to give you that overview and to hopefully what I've said, is meaningful to you in some way. You're resonating with it. You can. I hope that you get a copy of the book. As I say, click on the description and then click on that link, and you'll be able to buy a copy. 10 to 15 days from order to delivery. I think that's about it for now. I think that's it. I think I've said enough now. So thanks very, very much again to all of you, and I'll speak to you all soon. Okay, bye-bye.